Hi, Mike.
Hey, Bob, and hello to all of you out there in Etherland.
Hey, welcome back to the Pop Culture SquadCast Live. We were off last week. We are back. We have next couple of guests lined up for this week and the next couple. So we will be in your ears and eyes for the next 3 Tuesdays at least, and probably beyond that. But we're back on schedule. And how you doing?
I'm doing fine. I recovered from Mythicon.
Yep, we were at Mythicon a couple weeks ago, which was great. We had a fantastic show.
Along with Sherry, who just said hello. Hello, Sherry.
We did. It was a lot of fun. Got to hang out with some people. Our guest tonight actually comes out of a conversation I had at the end of Mythicon. We do have a guest tonight. It is writer and colorist Oliver Mertz, who has a new Kickstarter that's ending in a couple of days. And I had a conversation with Shelley Bond. And she asked me about his Kickstarter, and I'm mutual of his in a couple of places, and I've seen the Kickstarter and I've seen people talking about it, and I hadn't gotten that deep into it. She told me some things about what they did, and maybe we might get into that with Oliver, but I'm excited to have him on the show. I thought it would be good to, get a Kickstarter near the end. We typically get Kickstarters like at the beginning, so let's get one at the end to give it a little bit of life. So we'll get to that.
Push them over the top.
Well, yeah, push them into financial satisfaction at least. Let's turn off this. All right. Let's talk about some new things going on in the world of comics. Let's share what's coming out this week, because there's a ton. It feels like the first few months of the year have been super slow with new stuff. There's been a bunch of good stuff coming out. There's been some things, but in terms of some new things, it's been slow. I think people were waiting for Free Comic Book Day, and there's a ton of new stuff coming now and will be coming. Let's talk about some of the stuff that's coming this week.
Well, also, I think people are waiting for, or publishers are waiting for convention season.
Well, there's never not a convention season.
Well, that's true these days, but it's easier to promote, new projects when you have humans to promote it from.
That's fair. Let's see. How do I make this bigger? I can just do this. So, Ain't No Grave is coming out this week. And this is by Scotty Young and Jorge Corona. I'm excited for this because I like Scotty Young and Jorge Corona, and I like them even better together. Have you read any of their stuff together?
No, I haven't. I'm a fan of Scotty's, but that's mostly driven by those phenomenal covers he does.
Sure. Jorge was the artist on Middle West, which I highly recommend. They also did The Me That You Love in the Dark, which was a little bit darker. And then I talked to Jorge a year ago, and he was telling me that they were working on this. So I'm excited this is finally coming out. I have not read it yet, but I plan on reading it tonight. The Armory Wars returns, which apparently the lead frontman from Coheed and Cambria writes the Armory Wars, which I had no idea about, but that's cool. Blood Hunters is one of the first tie-ins to Blood Hunt, which came out last week from Marvel. It's their early summer event. You've read issue 1. I've read issue 1. It's interesting. I'm not sure where it's going.
That's about all I can say about it. I mean, and that's the purpose of a first issue, is to make you interested in what's going on in the future. If you have a big event, and I say that trying to press my cynicism, you got to set it up, and it's going to unfold over time. I'm not sure where this is going. I like the characters, so hopefully it'll be phenomenal.
Yeah, I hope so too. This book was definitely surprising to me that it exists. Boy Wonder.
Yes, I just picked that up. I haven't read it yet.
Are you a fan of Juniba? Have you ever seen Juniba?
I don't know. I don't think so.
He's phenomenal. He is definitely has a very distinct style, and he's sort of similar to Jeff Darrow if in that type of cartoonist type approach to telling a story. The art's not all that similar, but it's that kind of cartoonist approach to telling a story.
I'll tell you what has me intrigued about this book. And it's not the talent on it, although, that'll speak for itself. It's the fact that they're doing a black label book featuring Damien.
Well, I'm excited.
That is weird. Well, we'll see if it blows up in anybody's face, but black label books, you don't know. But that's an interesting turf to set the story on. So I'm interested. I'm intrigued.
Mm-hmm. I will give you that. This book I've read already. I've read issue 1 of Crocodile Black. We had this thing is not working right. Let's pull it back one more. Here we go. Crocodile Black. We had Philip Johnson on in March, and we were talking about this. And I've read it now, and it is very much a book that someone said, hey, let me tell us a scary horror story set in COVID, when everything is shut down and everybody is isolated. It is it's very good. It's very good, very tough.
Following in Dean Hasfield's wake with
yes.
COVID.
Sure. Yeah.
Of course, COVID is going to inspire plenty of stories. I mean, we all lived through this 2-year nightmare.
And it's, you're right. There are going to be plenty of stories about COVID, just like there are plenty of stories about other events that happen, and when it's just a matter of how long do they take to come? And Dean was one of the first, obviously. This one is also an early thing where it's not about COVID. It's just set in that time frame, right? It's not necessarily about what's going on with COVID. It's just
right.
This is what the world was like then.
Everything during that period was at least a little bit about COVID. COVID touched all of our lives completely without uniting us, which is weird and a bad sign. Yes,
you're right. Of course you're right.
I'm sorry. Hate to be Debbie Downer.
I understand. No worries. This is another tie-in. There's plenty of tie-ins, and we're going to get to that concept of tie-ins. Dracula is an interesting character in the way that Bloodhunt has been set up. Valiant. So Valiant is returning this week. There are 3 books that are featuring Valiant characters that are, from my understanding, is that Valiant has now licensed their characters to a company called Alien Books. And so Alien Books has published them under the Valiant label. And I don't know, I think they picked some good ones to start with. I mean, I love the Valiant characters, and it's so disappointing to me that they just sit and don't get written or drawn or stories aren't being made.
My question is, how many times can you relaunch Valiant and still have enough readers who care?
Sure.
That killed Thunder Agents, but then again, so did the fact that few of the relaunches on Thunder Agents understood what the original series was all about. But now it's just a dead property. Nobody cares if you do a Thunder Agents revival, and I'm beginning to get that same vibe off of Valiant. I respect the fact that people want to keep on publishing it, and that's great. But and as you said, I like some of the characters a lot,
right?
But you got to make a commitment, and that is not what the comics business in the United States is about anymore. We don't make commitments. We hope for 6 to 10 issues of a mini series, and then maybe do another one. And I mean, that's okay for characters like Doctor Strange, who never could pull off a monthly series for any great length of time, with a few exceptions. Submariner, same thing. I think
they figured it out though with Strange. Like it's monthly. I mean, it's been going. I'm not saying you're not right. You were you're right about that for a long time. It's been over the past few years though. I think they've figured out how to just bite the bullet and just keep doing it. I don't know if it's selling, but they're definitely printing.
Well, I know that Marvel just made a commitment to doing 10 issues at least of a project. Now we'll see how long that commitment sticks.
Is that what you've heard, that they're doing? Like, when we're going to launch, we're going to do 10 issues.
Yeah, but I am reminded of 2 very old TV shows that debuted at the same time, roughly the same time. One was called Batman, and the pilot was done for CBS. The other was called All in the Family, and the pilot was done for ABC. Both networks said, "This sucks, forget it." And the producers swapped. They sold Batman to ABC, where it did magnificently from the get-go, and they sold All in the Family to the Tiffany Network, CBS, where it languished. It had a very bad first season. So did Dick Van Dyke 10 years earlier. But the network stayed with it. They believed in it. And I guarantee you that they're spending a lot more money on a TV show just staying with it than we do on comics, although that too is a lot of money.
Sure.
But All in the Family started an empire. And Batman,
Absolutely.
Quite frankly, started Batman.
Fair. Batman had a lot to do with where we are today.
Yes.
More than people give it credit for.
Oh my God, yes. Yes. That's why I have, there are these Stan Lee wars going on right now. I mean, I like Stan, and I agree with almost everything people said about what he created, what he didn't create, his role in all of that. Most of that, I guess, makes perfect sense to me. However, if not for Stan being on television, on Dick Cavett, along with John Lennon and other talk shows, Merv Griffin in those days and Mike Douglas in those days, I don't think we'd have comics today, because Stan took the energy from the Batman TV show and went on TV and said, well, there are these comic books and they're really big on college campuses. And all of a sudden they became really big on college campuses and comics became legitimized.
Soothsayer Stan.
That may very well have been strictly because of Stan's ego. I don't care. We don't fault creators for having egos. That's how you create.
Right. We're going to skip through some of the rest of them, but this book is a graphic novel from First Second Press called Karate Prom. And if I'm right, and I think it is, this is the first book that Kyle Starks has written and drawn that his kids can read. I might be wrong. It might not be this one. There's one coming out that his kids can read. But I love Kyle Starks, and when he writes and draws stuff, it's really great. I'm looking forward to this from First Second. And I want to highlight this. This is the trade paperback for Sirens of the City, which comes out this week. And if you haven't been reading Sirens of the City, now is your opportunity to get the whole thing at once. It is really, really well crafted story. about magical beings in Manhattan, and gorgeously drawn by Kyrie Randolph and excellently written by Joanne Starr, who I love. But yeah, I recommend this book wholeheartedly. We have a bunch to talk about. So many other things I wanted to talk about. I want to get to them. You did a piece this week that. All right, so tell people what you wrote about. You say it. Because I mean,
my editor doesn't remember my column.
Well, I remember it. It's called "Let's Stumble in the Jungle." Okay,
Stumble in the Jungle.
Stumble in the Jungle. Okay,
yes,
and we're gonna read Brainiac on Banjo, and oh boy, it's Jungle Girl and all of them. We meet all of them, and just the concept of the Jungle Girl as a trope, and how many of them existed and how many amazing people have worked on them. And we've had movies and TV shows and why, you made an interesting,
why, right.
I think you made an interesting point. And this is why I kind of wanted to bring it up, because I think like your point was that in the 40s and 50s, there was tons of Jungle Girl comics everywhere, all over. It was ubiquitous until what happened?
Code Authority.
Well, there's a convergence, of the code coming in and Playboy, right?
Well, yes, that's true. That's very true and critically important, because Playboy debuted just about the same time, maybe just like a year or two after EC had started hitting its height,
which is when the code went crazy.
Well, yes, the code also, here's a secret. The code also went crazy, actually more so, because of the competition from Lev Gleason. The crime comics and the horror comics that he did, that his outfit did.
It's interesting you call it an outfit.
Well, the thing about Gleason is that the other publishers were worried that somebody would get Gleason to do a Bill Gaines and wind up on TV on a televised Senate subcommittee hearing. And Gleason was a card-carrying communist. And this was the 1950s. And that could have, at the time of Frederick Wortham et al., that really could have killed the industry.
Sure.
Because the anti-communism fervor was unbelievable, much more so than anybody but me can understand, because I'm really old. It would have killed the business. So they really forced Gleason out of business. Gaines, oh yeah, that was great too, because he was doing all of those like remarkably drippy horror comics that influenced us all so much and made my generation better citizens.
Sure. I just thought it was interesting. Of course, you had to pick a cover with monkeys on it. So.
Well, I mean, it's the jungle. Come on.
Well, I understand, but gorillas are we have gorilla covers. I think it's interesting, and here's why I wanted to talk about it. So this is why there's this conversation that you and I have had and continue to have for a very long time about cockroach capitalism.
Yes.
And the industry as a whole. Can you explain what you mean by cockroach capitalism? Because I think I have it figured out, but
well, I mean, the phrase cockroach capitalism started well before comics, 30, 40, 50 years before comics. But essentially what it is a bunch of individuals, and I mean individuals, start up some sort of a venture on a wing and a prayer and hope to make it, which I think is a great philosophy. Except that cockroach capitalist publishers, because of the nature of the publishing business, are going to lose a lot of money. They're going to have to make a lot of fast moves. They have to, this book is tanking. We got to do something else. We cancel this after 3 issues, and we do something completely different. You look at the comics of the early to mid 1950s, and you see an enormous diversity of children's entertainment because nobody knew what to do. Congo Bill had his own book. He was in Action Comics since Action Comics, I think, #1.
Mm-hmm.
But it took like 15 years for him to get his own book, and that only lasted maybe 5 issues. At the same time, DC did a book called It's Game Time. They never did an archive edition of that. It's Game Time was just puzzle pages with Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, that sort of thing. That didn't work either. Every publisher went through that. And I maintain that our really good stuff comes out of that. EC came out of that tradition. Bill's father had died with a bunch of EC comic books that nobody cared about and hardly anybody remembers. And he said, well, great, let's do Tales from the Crypt and then change the world. Mm-hmm. Jim Warren, and I talked about this at Ithacon, Jim Warren did a whole line that was essentially a tribute to EC. He had Harvey Kurtzman doing a humor magazine. He had Archie Goodwin doing war and horror. They worked a lot of science fiction into their line. Some of the greatest comics artists who were working in the 60s worked for Jim Warren. Some Steve Ditko's best work, in my opinion.
Was it Warren?
Yeah, those beautiful wash tone black and white pages. Oh my God, they're gorgeous. So I have an affinity for them. All of the original comic book publishers, with the arguable exception of Dell, which wasn't anywhere as big as we think it was, because they had paperbacks and they had straight magazines and all that, much like Fawcett. They were just guys in a room. And one day, like Stan was forced to do, Stan Lee, they weren't making any money and they had to fire everybody. Stan ran Marvel Comics, or Atlas at that time, off of inventory for months.
Yeah. Yes. For years. And that's how capitalism works in the best way. It gives people a chance. Now, we can talk about the worst ways, or you can just watch Donald Trump. But I'm sorry? I'd rather not.
Yeah, I understand. That's a common feeling right now. Actually, Mindy Newell and I just got into a debate about that about an hour ago.
So there's this concept, right, where publishers there are so many decisions that get made at higher levels. And I know that when you were at DC the first time, it didn't happen the way it was. But by the time you got back to DC the second time, really, when you came back, it started. And I think that the concept of the line-wide crossover that happens now yearly, at least, maybe seasonally, but that wasn't a thing. Like there was the occasional, every year there was like 2 issues of Justice League, Justice Society crossover. You had your crossover books that were just for, team ups, your team up books, right? Which Mike Urey has written a whole book about. And
yeah, I mean, why did they name Marvel Team Up? Right.
So but then it was Crisis crossovers that really like where everything kind of infected it. That was like the first one, and then like kind of Secret Wars and things that happened in that standalone Secret Wars thing. When they did it first, and it was just Secret Wars. It just happened in a bubble, and then Secret Wars 2. No, it's got to happen across all the books.
Yeah.
And now we're in the middle of Blood Hunt at Marvel. We're in the middle of like Absolute Justice at DC, and we're going to go into something else, and it becomes, it becomes unwieldy for the consumer.
Absolutely. When all you have are events, then events are not events.
Right, because all you have are events. You have nothing else.
Right. I mean, it's like, okay, we're putting all these superheroes into this really huge phone booth. We're going to have them fight their way out and tell stories. Well, okay, that's cool. But the problem with Crisis is that it was totally contradicted the minute it ended.
Right.
Which it should not have been. They should have stuck with it. Marvel, obviously there's a reason why I confused the two. Marvel followed suit. Secret Wars was something that the retailers hated. When they announced Secret Wars 2, Carol Kalish, God rest her soul, beautiful woman, and one of the greats in comics history, was direct sales manager at Marvel at the time. And she gets up there at one of the conferences and says, well, we're going to do Secret Wars 2.
Mm-hmm.
And the retailers booed her rather severely, which offended me because I like Carol, but that's beside the point. And she said, well, no, wait a moment, folks. We're doing Secret Wars 2 because we sold a lot of copies of Secret Wars 1, which means you sold a lot of copies of Secret Wars 1. And evidently your readers like it.
Well, they sold a lot of copies of Secret Wars 8.
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't know if that sold better initially or not.
Well, I will never have it again. I'll tell you that much.
No, I understand. I totally understand that. But people hated the series. The story made no sense to a lot of people, or just wasn't exciting enough for a lot of people. And that, I don't want to say that set the standard for all these big event series. It didn't quite, but it did sort of.
I mean, it led to it. I think it led to it because then DC was like, "Oh, we did this with Crisis. Okay, well now Invasion, and now Millennium, and now."
But in between Crisis and Invasion was Legends, which I know something about.
I know you know. I'm not including Legends in that because I thought Legends was a really great standalone. What I liked about Legends was that Legends was this standalone series that if you read it, you could go off of it. Right. Whereas things like Millennium's, like you whatever book you were reading, all of a sudden it didn't become that book anymore. Now it was the Millennium issue of that book. And you had and I know, you talk to any creator and they're like, I can't do this because I have to deal with this event.
Right. The purpose of Legends was to have a positive reaction to the DC universe, to expand the DC universe, which had contracted under Crisis. So we got a new Justice League out of it. We got the Suicide Squad out of it. We introduced Amanda Waller in Legends.
Yes.
And now she is the focal point of at least one and maybe 100 massive event series that the DC is doing right now.
Right.
All of them.
It's all she's
everywhere. And she's a great character, don't get me wrong.
Oh, of course.
But that's where it started. We created, and that was John Ostrander, I should point out. We created Amanda Waller in Legends as an expansion move, as introducing a new character that would be significant to the DC universe. And I'd like to see more of that in these events. But quite frankly, I'd like to see a hell of a lot fewer events and just people doing what they think are really great comic book stories, where people can jump in at the beginning of an arc and read it and enjoy it, or read the trade paperback and enjoy it.
Well, here are three of those things that I've enjoyed. So
Yeah.
we talked about Gods. Gods is a Marvel book that is a standalone book that you can just enjoy. Unfortunately, it didn't early. This book, Unnatural Order, Chris Yost is writing from Vault. This is it's 4 issues. I think this is the 4th issue. This is really good, really good stuff. And then Helen of Windhorn, which we talked to Tom King about. This is the 2nd issue. It is absolutely taking off artistically where Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is, and thematically, just excellent. When I read it, when I read the 1st issue, I wrote Tom a very long letter about how he made me like this incredibly unlikable narrator, and I think that's fantastic. And it's just a good book. Those are 3 things I want to.
I am a big advocate of miniseries like that, because those used to be the types of books that were hard to sell. Now people have grown more accustomed to them. They can pick up a miniseries, 6 issues. They can go like, well, I'll take a chance on this. Let's see what they're doing. Yep. And it's not necessarily superhero. It's not necessarily mainstream superhero to the extent that it is. It's often heroic fantasy, but it's got a beginning and a middle and an end. And that's cool. That's like real storytelling, folks.
All right. We're going to bring in our guests. We have more things to talk about. Maybe we'll get to those later. We will bring in our guests and talk to him about it. But he's been patiently waiting in the green room. We are going to have Oliver Mertz on tonight. He is a writer and colorist in the DMV, which is where I am. So we like that. He's got a Kickstarter that is ending in a couple of days. We're going to get the actual dates and times in about a second. But I want to start off with the intro to his Kickstarter.
Hi, everyone. My name is Oscar Mertz, and Hi, everyone. My name is Oliver Mertz, and I'm the writer and colorist of A Ghost Arm Made of Angry Ghosts. A Ghost Arm Made of Angry Ghosts #1 is a perfect-bound, double-sized issue that is 58 pages long. Eternal life of the perpetually terminally ill, teen angst, and a superpowered murder mystery all play out against the backdrop of the DC punk scene of the 1990s. A Ghost Arm Made of Angry Ghosts is a love letter to DC punk music, growing up in the DMV in the 1990s, and really good pull-the-thread, follow-the-clues style mysteries. And who doesn't love a good mystery? The comic is written and colored by me, with beautiful art by Alex Dioto, and exceptional lettering by Taylor Esposito. Thank you for checking out A Ghost Arm Made of Angry Ghosts. I hope you support and help make this comic happen.
Hi, Oliver.
Hey.
Or Oscar.
Hello, Oliver. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
When does the Kickstarter end?
The Kickstarter, well, actually, before we start, I should say I have a newborn and you will hear crying, and I have some younger kids who you will hear running around. I'm hiding out in the basement, so
that's where I live. So
just fair warning, if all of a sudden I'm mid-sentence and I go, I just want to make sure that, a bookcase hasn't fallen or something.
That's totally fine. That's totally fine. We're running the in the bottom trailer is where you can find it. I'm going to put the link to the project in the chat so everybody can get there. When does it end exactly?
So it should end. I believe it'll be Thursday around 3:00, and it's already made its goal, which is nice. Because then we can do stretch goals and things like that, and I can also not sweat down to the wire. This is like the 5th Kickstarter I've done, and they can be a real nail biter. So it is nice to not have that, and yeah.
Well, you did a good job of telling us about it in the intro in that video, but kind of give us an idea. I mean, I've read the first issue. Before I give you an opportunity, I want to say I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
There we can get into why I liked it, but it is it's
I
really
am glad
good.
to see that you were funded, because what I want is to read the next issue.
Yes. I would love for people to read the next issue. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, like, when you're sort of putting it together yourself, it's just you're happy to get to the finish line of the first one. But obviously, we have the scripts and the blueprints and everything ready to go. And Alex is actually already working on the art for issue 2. So I'm excited for that.
All right. So what is this about?
So it's a very it's a story that pulls from a lot of different places. Like the short form that if I condense it down is that it's set in the backdrop of the DC punk scene of the 1990s. A bunch of teens stumble upon this superpowered murder mystery, and so that's the condensed version of it. But what that means is you spend time with some teens and you get to know who they are, know what they love about the DC punk scene. I grew up in the DMV. It's sort of a write what you know situation, and I wanted to set a story in an environment that I felt was really rich and full of passion, and also in terms of making a comic yourself. Well, the DC punk scene was all about making the music yourself.
That's
and,
right.
We're not going to be New York. We're not going to be California or anywhere else in the country or the world. We're going to do our own thing. And
Dance in New York.
What is it?
They dance in New York.
They dance in New York. Yeah. Well, that was always a thing too, that and it was like a running gag. I mean, people they get crazy and they get wild and they do their thing at a punk show, but also you get people this is so in the comic, the main characters, Ari and Maya, are standing at the back of the room, standing on some chairs. So that's an actual Fugazi show that I went to, and I was standing on some chairs in the back. And so you got the people going wild, and then you got the people sort of standing back just doing this.
Yeah.
And taking it in. You want to see the show. You want to see the band do their thing.
And not get hit.
Yeah, and not get hit. And you kind of want to, I don't know, it's just a different vibe. And sort of that's also what I wanted to talk about, that feeling of I don't know, being a nerd in a cool space. Does that make sense?
No, yeah. I feel there's.
I'll tell you what I enjoyed the most, and this is just a very personal reaction.
Sure.
I was there in New York, living in New York in the mid 70s for the beginning of the punk scene in New York. CBGBs and the Mud Club and all that stuff. And hell, I saw some great talent, unbelievable. But you showed us that the next generation in the Washington area was a different version of that punk scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very clear that you had direct familiarity with it because you put it in the story. And I found that very impressive. Very impressive.
Thank you very much. I think the thing that I also feel, and there's a reason you don't see the band play in the comic that we have before and after. I am writing from the place of a fan. I'm writing from the place that's the story that I'm telling. I wasn't telling the story of the band and of that experience. Right. It's the story of, in that time, it's same with, I think people might still do this now, but to a much greater extent, it was, you go hunting for records and you go hunting for, you wanted that pressing of this or that, or you wanted, there was a sense of like, I mean, it's the same thing with comics. Like, you know, there's something about,
Having Secret Wars #8.
yeah, having it like that. I feel like that's also a part of music, and like, I didn't want to tell the story of the band. I wanted to tell the story of the fans, because that's me, and I felt like that was a nice place to sort of hang out. I've also been likening it to, did you ever see the movie Dazed and Confused?
Oh,
Yeah, like, you know, so like, Richard Linklater film, like the idea, like that movie is all about just hanging out with the characters and like,
And I want to get to that.
yeah.
That's kind of the point that I'm getting from this, and that you absolutely put this setting with these kids who are just totally into punk music, and that's the thing that they live with, but they don't live in our world. The
Sure.
world they live in is very different.
Mhm.
We don't have 50-foot people jogging in our neighborhoods.
No,
We don't
no.
have superheroes
Maybe
live
not
across the
your
street.
neighborhood.
I mean, who's
And-
to say, you know?
but this is a world where there are superpowered beings, and we are engaging in people. Some of them have superpowers, but we are engaging with them as human, or as regular people. It's not the right word, but it's the best word
Yeah.
I can think of at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Despite their superpowers.
Yeah, I think, in similar fashion to like, how I felt like I didn't want to tell the story of the band. Like, I also don't want to tell the story about the saving the world, a superhero story. You know, like that's a great story, and that, you know, many people have told that story very well. But I love, when you see, um, powers broken down into how those powers actually, um, like affect someone on a really personal level, and how they can wear on someone, how they can not, how they can just be something that they adapt to, and layering that in, like over this like setting, this very real world setting. I also thought was, like, I just wanted to, like, I wanted to tell the story of a world that I thought was interesting. Like, I don't know, I was pulling from all the different places, and like, I like all of these different elements, and I like, in as much as I was like writing what you know, it's also writing what you want to read, and
Right.
like, I love stories with superheroes, and why not have them exist in this real world DC setting of the punk scene? Like, why not have them, you know, populate neighborhoods? Why not have, you know, people on, you know, people on, sort of like, government mandated programs where they're not, supposed to use their powers except in certain ways? And like, I thought that once I started adding in those elements, I also knew that I also wanted to add in, murder mystery. Who doesn't like a good murder mystery? Yes. I also, Dean is an amazing artist, and
Dean is a friend of the show.
that's awesome. I'm a big fan, so that was cool.
Yeah. Me too, but you know, Dean is the Renaissance man of comics, so
Sure.
you know, you got to give him proper respect.
Totally. What was I saying? Oh, murder mystery.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is a murder mystery, like all of those things. Like it's a love letter to DC punk scene. Yes, it's a people living in a world where there are superpowers, but they're just part of that's not sensational.
Yeah.
It's abnormal, and it's different, and it's something that people have, but there's been an acceptance, and people are used to it. But
Yeah.
it is also a murder mystery.
Yeah.
It's I'm using this word, but it's not negative. It is very dense. The first issue, it is.
Oh,
There's
certainly.
a lot in there, and I have a question. So it's 60 pages, right? Just about
It's 58.
58.
Yeah.
Why that length
Yeah.
for issue 1?
So when I started working on it, this is like, it was like 3.5 years ago now. I had an idea for, I started to have the idea of the scene that happens at, there's the main characters are waiting in line to vote for that week's weather. There's someone who has the ability to alter the weather, and they are doing so in a way where they have like a card table set up, and people come up and they have to bring a particular candy, which is Fruitlers in the comic, which is standing for Skittles, so I don't get sued. But they bring in the Skittles, they vote for the things, and I thought, what if I had this image in my head of of a murder happening there, and then I started like pulling back what that would be. And so as I started writing it, and I started writing the characters and doing all these different things, it got a little longer and it got a little longer. And I've been making comics for a long time, and I have not really had a lot of success with publishers, and that's been fine because I've been able to do it myself, and I really appreciate being able, like, if you're doing it yourself, you can make it whatever you want. So right. As the story went on, it felt right to expand things. So that's where that like hangout feeling, I could take an extra page or two with the characters, where we're not moving forward the plot, but we're moving forward the story of those characters. Because that's what I wanted to read. I wanted to hang out with them and like let them drive. And I should say also, I had it at around 44 pages at the end of last year, and then I expanded it more. Alex and I we're working with Taylor Esposito on lettering, and we expanded it more before this Kickstarter launch, where there were elements where I introduced the characters later, and then I thought, let's go back and let's change this, and I expanded different things. And again, like when you're not beholden to a particular schedule, when someone else isn't paying the bills, which, hey, maybe that I would love that one day. Yeah, if someone else pays the bills, wouldn't that be wonderful? But when I'm doing it and Alex is doing it and we're working with Taylor, like we're just doing our own thing. And as the story developed, it felt right, making a pretty long first issue. And the other issues also are all set right now. They're set at 44 pages. Okay. They're pretty hefty. I mean, there are large sections as well that are sort of odd history sections.
Yeah, but they are it's an interesting device you used, and it's important for something as heavy and dense as what you're going through. Like you could remove, if you were to remove those history lessons, right, that you go through, and there's two or three or maybe 3 or 4 in issue 1. They're good chapter breaks. They're good. Okay, let me digest what I just went through, because there's a lot of stuff that you kind of you do it in a really strong way, where you let the reader take in some stuff, but that if you don't stop and think about it, it's gonna hit you at the wrong time later, and maybe those interstitial things are the right time for you to digest that while consuming this interesting history.
Yeah,
it's half made up.
What impressed me, so when I was reading the book, you just sort of inferentially noted the weekly weather poll. It's just you just sort of mention it, and then we see it later on in the story. Well, that's how you told us that this is a different world. This is a world different than the one that we may be familiar with. And I combine that with the energy that you got from the punk scene. And I'd like to point out that punk music fanzines from the late 80s, early 90s reminded me a hell of a lot of the comics fanzines of the 60s, early to mid 60s. And a lot of our great talent, from started out in those comics fanzines in the 60s. And the punk fanzines of a generation later had that same effect on music. And that was a wonderful thing for me to be reminded of, just how that worked. And it was very nice to see it do that.
I think it all goes back to sort of that fan mindset and like loving being a fan of something and loving being a part of something. Like in the 90s, I loved growing up in the DC area because like you felt like you were part of this club, and so yeah, when there were fanzines or things, it was usually made by someone. Like you could pick things that you could get them. So Yesterday and Today Records was a place nearby, but you could also go to the Tower Records here, and they would carry those zines. But like, it's the same thing that I do feel about the comics community, even though like we're all over the place and everyone's virtual and that type of thing. But like, there is this unifying love of the medium and the storytelling that when we all talk about it, it's like there's a spark that we all get to share. And so I don't know, I like being a fan.
It's really what changed both media. The involvement of fans. Everybody in the rock scene was a fan. Can't be in the rock scene without being a fan of some form, if not all forms of music. And you get to share it because there are concerts where people get together and have fun. Comics didn't have that in the 60s. We had fanzines to communicate with one another. But when I walked into my first big deal convention, which was Phil Souling's show in 1968 in New York, there were like 999 people there, and I was one of them, and all of us had the same thought. There are 998 other people who are like us. Oh my God.
That's awesome.
10 years, 15 years later, 20 years later, I went to like rockabilly concerts to get that same feeling.
Yeah, I hear all that. Yeah, and I think that's awesome. Now,
I want to talk about the book a minute, and back to where we were. There were at the end of the book, you included some pull quotes that people have given you. I want to talk about two of them. So the first one is from Matt Rosenberg, who said, "Bored teenagers, basement punk shows, superpowers, the suburbs, and a really weird murder mystery. A ghost arm made of angry ghosts is like if Daniel Clowes and David Lapham got together and tried to create the X-Men, but really didn't care that much if they saved the world or not. And I can't think of a higher compliment I could give." Very Matthew Rosenberg, but but I thought it was really appropriate because it has the concept that I get from this. And it ties into the second one, which I think really encapsulates that. And I want to bring that one in here. So the second quote was, "Attention everyone who misses 90s Vertigo. Here's your new favorite comic book. Taut pacing, seamless dialogue, and style in spades. Ghost Arm of Angry Ghosts is more potent in particular than anything you've ever read." And there's that. It does very much feel like a book that would have been a Vertigo book, or and it could have been. It also would have been a Black Crown book. It also has that feel that that feel of whatever, no, it's the generation. That's the Gen X anthem, whatever.
Yeah. I hear that. Yeah.
It's and that is who I am. But it has that feel.
first of all, both Shelley and Matt were incredibly kind to say anything at all. I really, really appreciate them doing that. And Shelley in particular,
She's the reason why I'm doing this, just so you know.
Yes, I know. Shelley is a mutual friend of ours who has been a mentor of mine and has really helped guide me in developing this story. I came to her with it sort of already in place, and she helped me understand how to make it more what it was. And that was something part of the some of the additions that I did put back in were through talking with Shelley, things that I guess it's about making it more what it was, like there's something about telling the story in the most realized way, and Shelley can cut through it and see, like, I see what you're doing here, and I think you need to try something else. And Shelley never is one to say, do this. She's saying, I think you're trying to do this, but I don't think you're doing it. That's more the line. I mean, she's worked on every good book ever, like just look at everything that she's done. So I'm just so incredibly fortunate to know her and to know that she helped push this book and me further than I have gone before, and like as a creator, one, having someone read your stuff and say, I like it, this is good, someone who knows good and knows the best of the best. I'm not saying I'm anywhere near that, but it saw potential, I will say. I hope that is I don't mean to say that this book is the best, although please go back to Kickstarter, it's the best. But to talk with someone who could see that and help sort of like give me the nudge I needed. That's what Shelley does.
Shelley is a good person. I just did a panel with her that Bob, what's the word? Orchestrated, and about editing in comics. And it was a wonderful experience. For whatever reason, I had not met Shelley. I mean, sort of seen her at conventions and stuff. This is the first time I really got a chance to know her. And my God, you took advantage of a great opportunity, and she was great for giving you that opportunity.
Completely. So I should say, I worked with her for she teaches these amazing editing classes, and Ghost Arm was a little bit of the fodder for one of these classes, and the sort of benefit that I got was the class taking a look at these this book, but also Shelley working on it and sort of taking a look at it. And again, I went from not working with an editor and doing things in my own way and making these books my own way. And the change, it's like drastic and not drastic, like you go from thinking it's got to be this, it's got to be that. And I think like the more that you make things, like you kind of whittle away, you get down to like, you're doing it right, but you could be doing it better. An editor like can bring out what you're trying to do through like questioning. It's almost like therapy. It's almost like
it's absolutely like therapy,
which is not what an editor signs up for, but I think that's what an editor does. They being able to talk through something with a writer, being able to say, what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve here? Why did you make this choice? And when you start, talking through your choices, even like putting them into words to share with someone, getting it out of your head is like a really wonderful way to be sure that you're telling the story in the way that you want to be. So sometimes Shelley would say, "What about this?" And I would say, "No, I'm 100% on that." And I would know that I was, because that's how, you were forced to sort of articulate why you made that choice. But the book was near done. It was sort of an autopsy that Shelley performed. And it's not that the book was bad. Like, I don't think the book was.
I don't think the book was bad either, and I didn't even see it. I'm not. So you don't have to defend
Because
that.
most of it is there. Like 99 or 95% of what you're reading is what was there. But there are. There were things that we went back and changed in these discussions, and there were things that were adjusted, even different panel choices. Alex, we did some pickup panels and things like that, to sort of get at some of the emotion of some of the scenes in a different way or a different angle. And Alex is just a phenomenal collaborator. Aside from being a brilliant artist, he's just easy to work with. And I think that's all you can ask for a creative partner. Like, you want someone who also wants to make it the most what it is. And, we both have similar influences. We both have similar aesthetics. And we were able to really find a good rhythm. So when we did, adjust and finesse things, it was always a very smooth and easy experience. But what we ended up with as a book, like, it's easily the best thing I've ever written. And because of people like Alex working with it, Alex, but also Shelley for her involvement. And it's also like you stand on all the experiences that you've done, every time you do something, you can make it more. I love the books that I've done before, and I think that they're fantastic. First Law Mad Science, did the Monuments, worked with some amazing collaborators. This book is different because I actively decided to to rip out parts of myself and put it in there.
So, if I can, that's you hit the right spot where I want to interject here. Yeah. Going back to what Mike just said, and you said about being like therapy with an editor. I think that editors perform that role when it's a deeply personal book. You don't need an editor when you're just like, okay, Spider-Man fights Rhino this week, and it's just is there something being told there? Is it entertaining? All that stuff. But when you get to a book like this, that's deeply personal, you can tell by reading it. You can tell from the first page, like when things happen. And there's some serious things we haven't even talked about that people should read this book for. But I think that's part of it. I think it is, you need someone to foil back at, or to bounce off and give you a reaction, because you don't know if you're just spilling your guts and you're going to die on the street, or if you're actually gaining something from it.
I think that's I didn't want to, it's self-indulgent in so many ways, but I also wanted to make it a good book to read.
Also very mean of you to have Alex draw the beautiful DC Metro.
Yes. Yes, having to do a bit of that. I love, I grew up writing it, write it now.
It's gorgeous. And we'll be there, and I was there a couple weeks ago. We'll be there in a couple weeks anyway. So, it's,
by the way, where are you? Just
I'm in Baltimore.
Okay, okay. I'm down in Silver Spring from you.
Right. So I'm just south of Baltimore, actually. So
Yeah,
It was the Metro shots that made, because I've taken the Metro.
Mhm.
It's how I knew where you would set the story at first. It was an immediate visual clue. When you're doing a story that is that personal and that different,
Mhm.
it's a high wire act. And what the editor does is it gives the creative team that parasol that you're holding when you're walking that wire between the two tall buildings. Maybe in a Spider-Man suit, I should point out. But nonetheless, that's the parasol. You need somebody to bounce ideas off of, or to take an outsider's look at what you're doing, because it's such a personal story to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you know you're communicating. When I do these editors panels, and I've been doing them maybe since we invented fire, I always tell people, how do I become an editor? Well, take a psychology course or do some reading on it. And remember that every creative team that you're working with, even if it's just one person, is different.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to juggle all of that. You, as the editor, have to be able to juggle all of that. I can edit stuff that I hate. I could have edited Mein Kampf. Because the trick is to be objective. Now, I'm not exactly sure.
I don't think this is going to work. Maybe you tell him you're the editor. I think you should shut down everything you're doing. I think find.
You need some more puppies, some more kittens.
Yes.
Lighten up on the Holocaust stuff. Maybe that's a little deep at first.
So, I think that's important. I want to talk about shift a little bit from the story to the art. We had a question that says, how do you decide what the character is going to look like? How much say did you have with Alex on how the main characters and other characters looked like? Like, how did that work for you guys?
Yeah. It was a discussion with Alex. Alex, as the artist of the book, he's also the co-creator of the book. He developed all of those the look and feel, but there are specific things that I wanted for certain characters, and so like Maya's like spiked hair, which is not, that's not exactly the most popular hairstyle of the 90s DC punk scene, but it was, like I had friends, my friend Morgan had that hair and was sort of, as a fan, was pulling from different punk scenes and as well, but still existed in that DC punk scene. So I wanted Maya to sort of represent that kind of look and feel. You don't need to dissect it. You don't need to go further than that, other than, having her there, I felt was the right look and feel. And then Alex, took that and made this wonderful character design. Ari, I knew sort of that skinny, sort of lanky kid look, that teen who just, a strong wind is going to knock him over. Because I think that look spoke to how that informed how that character, who is very apologetic to people, doesn't want to make waves, doesn't, how that person it looks needed to communicate that. So I like that look. I also like how that look is, as the series goes on, counter to some of the things that the characters experience. So there's some heavy things in their personal life. There's some physical things that they're going through. And then there's certainly this, murder mystery that they're wrapped up in that is just, it's like it's a lot for someone to take. So the that juxtaposition of that look felt right to me. And like we went through each and every each character, and there was a little back and forth, and then Alex would sort of have a sketch and he'd send it over and we'd discuss it. And then he sent this like amazing character sheet when they like, he was just like, this is it, right? This is it. And I'm like, this is it. And just one thing I would say to that is when you work with an amazing artist, when they send over stuff, like the email opens, or we do Messenger and things like that, it's the best feeling in the world.
Oh
yeah,
God.
no, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where
does he live, Alex?
He's in Italy.
No kidding.
Yeah, he's Italian. He lives in Italy.
So he did his homework.
He is a punk fan. He is punk through and through. He is a DC punk fan.
Okay.
When I approached him about this, he was like, "This is a story that I need to tell as well." He didn't need to live here to live that music and that mindset. As the DC punk scene was all about the like do it yourself DIY mindset, and that's Alex too. Like he wants to, let's just do it. Let's make something. Let's do something cool. And so he was the right partner for this. And yeah, he didn't live here.
I liked, especially one of the things I enjoyed as I was reading it, is the second day with these characters. Mm-hmm. Maya's hair is not spiked.
Yep.
Because it makes sense that she would do it up for a show.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily her every day.
Yeah.
And I like that. That makes sense in a character where they're not in a costume.
Yeah, we didn't like. There's sometimes subtle changes, but it's not like Simpsonized where like they have their set.
Right. Same clothes every day, whatever.
Same clothes every day, and that's how it is. There's certainly color palettes that I have, for each of them that are a bit of a through line, but yeah, no, Alex did a great job of sort of making it feel like they actually existed. They really lived in that world.
I'm laughing because of an experience I had that I haven't thought about much of lately. In the mid 70s, 76, 77, somewhere around there. It just so happens I was hanging out on St. Mark's Place in Manhattan.
Nothing wrong with that.
East Side. And these two punk rockers came up to me, with the piercings in the hair, and tried to expose themselves to me. I don't mean that in a sexual sense. We are punk rockers. You're an old man. It was the first time I was on that side of that argument. I was used to being, I was just hippie.
You were not an old man.
Well, I am now. But I wasn't then. This was 50 years ago. And they were trying to impress me with the fact that they were pierced. They had colored, purple colored hair and all this other stuff. And yeah, I was an old man because I was thinking, well, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, I was standing in this very same spot doing that to other people who had been beatniks.
And then you walked into St. Mark's Comics, right?
It's where St. Mark's Comics was. Yeah. Absolutely, right at that spot. And it was a wonderful experience for me to go through as a 26-year-old. Realize, no, I'm now the next generation. I'm now seeing the next generation, and that's great. Punk rock saved rock and roll. I did this piece for the Pop Culture Squad website yesterday. We were talking about it earlier in the show about Jungle Comics. And the reason why I wrote that was because I was listening to the Ramones. And, Sheena's
a punk rocker.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, Well,
I did catch the
actually-
reference in the book, in the thing.
I'm sorry.
There is a Ramones reference in the text of the article.
Oh yeah. The Ramones saved rock and roll. That's not a secret. They saved rock and roll.
What's interesting though is that like the Ramones speak to a younger audience, speak to an older audience. Like those kids trying to like impress upon you that you are older. Like you like the Ramones, they like the Ramones. Like there's a unifying thing there that I don't know. Like there's something about that like that idea that everyone has to like present themselves in this certain way, they have to act this certain way, when really underneath we're all just listening to the Ramones.
That's right. Rock and roll is about adolescent rebellion, but the thing is that you have to remember is adolescent rebellion is redundant.
Yeah. And I think something that I also wanted to
there you go.
Something that I wanted to include in like, so the character of Ari is not trying to rebel against anything. Ari is the old man. And I felt like the old man, from when I was a little kid, like once you start like,
there's something about that guilt that sits on your shoulder that turns you.
Yeah, you sort of like, I
get that.
But it's also like you like things that sometimes might be a little bit like you dig in a little bit too much. You know a little bit more, and you're not there because it's not about you like the energy, but you're there because you're appreciating things in like a slightly different way. Whereas like I also like, I like a good punk show because like a punk show is raw and wild. And so like there's that juxtaposed like idea of like the almost over analytical version of it, and then there's the like raw energy feeling of it. And I felt like I kind of wanted the characters to represent different pieces of that. So Ari is more of the taking it in, processing it, not going to do something wild. Although that you'll see how that plays out.
Sure.
There are a few photographs of Jack Kirby with Frank Zappa. And when I saw the first of those, I thought, well, this is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
This is right. It's almost sort of a changing of the guard type of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But Zappa brought to music what Kirby brought to comics, which was a sense of energy and a sense of individual style,
Mm-hmm.
and that sense of rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Doing
his own thing too, do your thing, without concern for how it fits in can it be homogenized, can it be made to be consumed in this way or that way. It's more about you're creating your own thing in your own way because you have to create your own thing in your own way.
That's right.
There's no other, you just can't exist any other way.
Creativity is an act of compulsion.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. Like you just have to do it. I don't make money in comics, but I'm going to make comics till the day I die. Like I love making comics because I love I love the actual process. I love telling these stories. I love that conversation with the artists. I love just the from going from just an idea to working out the beats to getting the whole process is just it's the most exciting thing that you can do, or at least I can do, and I love doing that. Now yeah, it's not a profitable thing. Some people make money in comics. You see
Well,
people
you
make
know, you're a young man. There's plenty of time.
There are a few rock stars, but
yeah.
every whomever you think is the best guitarist of all time, for every Eric Clapton out there, there's a million guys who are better who never get out of the garage.
Mm-hmm. I think that's something too about finish the work that you're doing. Like make the thing.
That's very important.
Do it and get it out there.
Stick to it.
Yeah, the finish. Well, part of. I mean, like this is like an existential comic book question. You know, is a comic fully done if readers haven't read it? Because that dialogue with the readers is a part of the whole thing. So, like,
Well, this one's done because I've read it.
yes, yeah.
See?
But it lived in my head and then in Alex's head, you know, for a while, and then it lived on our computers and our pages. You know, like it was not a thing, and finally getting it out there to like it feels like that's the real finish line, but not even yet. Like it's the dialogue that you get to have with the reader where you hope that someone, like, I made the comic that I wanted to read, but I also hope it's the comic that someone else wants to read.
Right.
And when you find people who like who also enjoy it, like it's an amazing feeling. Yeah. I just think like there's just something to that. I won't I won't name
Ian's comments, for better or worse, is important to grasp.
Yeah, there's something about
what you're producing is for better for people who like it, and for worse for people who don't. And screw them, it's your story. And if there's no audience for your story, okay, you're going to have a hard time paying the rent.
I think, you know, like I hope that everything, you know, it will find its audience, an audience. It doesn't mean that it's the widest audience in the world, but if you find your audience and like you can really have a good connection with a reader, like you're making something, you're doing the thing that you want to do, and that reader is like picking up that vibe, like that is like that's like just like a core piece of humanity. Like, why are we doing this? You know, like why are we here? This is such a wild question, but like part of it is like we're sharing these stories because we have to tell them, but someone has to listen too. I will say, like, I don't know, I think about this. I won't say who, and I won't get into the specifics, but I have a family member who's an incredible guitar player who years ago had all sorts of opportunities and this and that, and they didn't happen. And this guitar player plays guitar, and the music is no longer playing in bands, no longer getting the music out there. I remember as a kid thinking, like, why aren't you sharing your music? Like there was like a space to do it. It doesn't matter if anyone, like, you need to put it out there. If you, like, you're making these things, there's just something in my head that I've always like had, that you need to, like, you got to finish things. Like you have to like get to the end. You have to do these things. And it was always just like a family, like part of my family lore of like, don't shut down before things happen exactly the way you wanted them to. Don't shut down before, you know, you have the perfect moment. The perfect moment's never going to happen ever. Like, unless you make it, you know, like, and your perfect moment also is not going to be, some like thing that you're daydreaming about, envisioning. Like your perfect moment is like when you have done a thing that you want to do, to the satisfaction of yourself. Like, I don't know, I'm rambling here, but like,
no, you're right on the money.
At the point there.
Generally speaking, you have to make your own perfect moment.
Yeah,
like get out there, you have to stick to it, And after 20 years, you may be the next overnight sensation.
I think that also, like, you
But you may not.
What?
But you may not, and I
You
don't
may
mean,
not, and that's how you
you have
redefine.
to be okay with that.
Yeah, you redefine what those perfect moments are. Like for me, here we are having this conversation about a book that I'm incredibly proud of, and I feel like is worth someone's time to read. I feel great. I feel like this is a perfect
You
moment.
should feel proud of this book.
Yeah,
It is. It is. I'm happy that we're having this conversation. I'm happy I'm glad that we reached out to you to get you on to do this, so we can push you to the last stretch goal, which is not too far away.
not too far away. And hey, if we don't make it, we've already done so well that I feel great. Like I it's really encouraging how many people have either reached out to say how can I help, or reached out to I've sent the book to people and they've said this is great. I'm really happy to finally get to that place where I can share it. Like after making it, it's that thing they were saying. Like this is the done point. This is getting it out there, and now like I'll ride this wave for a few more days as the Kickstarter goes, and then I'll work on fulfilling it, and then I'll go back into my hole and we'll cobble together issue 2. We'll cobble together issue 3. I think we use stone tablets, and I'm not sure how we make it. I don't remember.
So are there? Is it 3 issues? Do you think, or is it?
No, I have 6 issues planned.
44 pages.
44 pages each. I have 5 issues at 44 written, and the 6 I started writing after I finished it. As you'll read it, you'll find a place to end it. You'll see what that 5th issue is, and I think that the story deserves this a little breathing room. In the same way that I stretched out issue 1, I'm stretching out the series, because 6 issues I think tells the story in the best possible way, in the way that I'm envisioning it. And when it's all said and done, I really the main thing is, is it good to me? Do I feel like it's something good? But is it worth someone's time? There's like a million things out there. Like I don't know. I mentioned I've got kids, so like my wife and I will try to watch a show or something, and like if it doesn't hook us, we don't have time. We only got quiet time for X amount of time, so we got to move on to the next thing. And I hope and I think that this is worth it's worth a spot on the shelf, a spot in the box, wherever you keep it. I think that this is a story that hopefully also lives in people's heads for a little while. I want them to think fondly of it. I want them to think that they went on a bit of a ride. Tonally, you've seen that there's some heavy moments, there's some light moments. It really does go all over the place, because that's how existence is. That's what we do. No day that any of us live is all happy. No day that any of us live is all negative.
You're also doing something that is critical, not just for this medium, but for all communications forms. And that is, you are inspiring the next generation. You are inspiring others. People will look at your work and go, well, that guy did it.
I think there's something, again, I keep going back to the DC punk scene of that mindset of DIY, but like, there was always that idea, if we can do this, you can do this, do it. And like, so if I can do this, anyone can do this.
No, it's a very good point.
It really is like, we need more comics. We need more people who stick to it, make those comics. I do a small amount of shows, but I always love when you're at a show and someone's made a book and it's the book, like it's their story. Like my favorite show in the world is Small Press Expo. If you, it's the best show, because it's the most passionate show. Everyone there has made something that's just like ripped out their heart, or there's something, and like it's the best feeling to read something that is someone's put their all into.
My friend Martha Thomas promoted Mocha, which is the New York independent.
I know Mocha. Yeah.
And when that started, she said, "Oh, you should come to see this. You should come here." And I said, "Okay, what's it about?" She explained, and I said, "Oh, that's something I want to see." And when I got to Mocha, which I think was in the Puck building, which is a beautiful building to have a show like that in Manhattan, I realized there's a future for comics. Because there are all of these youngsters here who don't care about what's in next month's Spider-Man. They're doing their thing. I mean, they may like next month's Spider-Man, or they may not. They may have never heard of the guy. It doesn't matter. They're doing their own thing. I
think with comics, like, make a comic and you're a comic creator, like that's the bar to enter. It's so low. Like it's not write the next issue of Spider-Man. Like,
no.
It is make it, photocopy it, to go to Kinko's and print them off, staple them. Like you're a comic creator just on the exact same playing field as everyone else. Then it's your job, though, to tell a good story and to bring people in with that. But I love that aspect of comics, that like anyone, if you make a comic, you are invited into this community.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. True. And you're a member of it. You have friends. You have people who understand what you're going through. You have people who don't like your work but respect the fact that you did it. that's great.
Everyone for me. I want to talk just a little bit about the fact that you colored this book as well as wrote it, and that's a different type of thing.
Can I say one tangent before we say that?
Yes.
So my friend Mike and I, we made a book years ago, and we did Mocha Fest. This is probably 14 years ago or so. And we met a very nice man who was doing straitjacket escapes.
Yeah, I know him.
I know you know him. We haven't mentioned we have a mutual friend, Sean Von Gorman, who is a brilliant artist. But that's how we met him. He was doing this wild promotion for his book, Secret Adventures of Houdini.
Yes, and Sean. I met Sean after he was done with the straitjacket, but we was at his wedding this weekend, which was a lot of fun. And
I saw photos, and I sent him a nice. I hope he thought it was nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, no.
Sean is super cool. But yeah, we met at Mocha Fest many years ago, and that's also something about making comics. You go, you do a show, and then you meet other creators, and then that becomes your class.
Yeah. Well, sure. And shameless promotion. Sean will be on the show sometime in the next. We're just waiting for his new book to get announced, and then we're going to get them on the show. So
yeah. I've seen a preview of it.
Yep,
looks good.
I want to talk about your coloring. Like, it's you and Jordy, writer colorist. That's good company, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. My goodness. Yeah.
But I think you did such a good job with this. I love the palettes you picked. I love the warmth you brought. There's a page, and I don't want to show it because the other panels on the page are too spoilery. But there's a page when Maya and Ari turn around to look at this major event, and you spotlight their faces, and just that panel is a perfect example of how well this whole book is colored. In fact, of where the light is, where we need to put our attention, how you guide the reader's eye through a lot of different panels, just the moods that you bring with temperature and stuff like that. Just really well done.
Thank you. I love coloring comics. It's like a really zen thing to do. Like, and then the other thing is like, I approach every page as if it has to be the best page I've ever done, and I can't finish it until, which is why things take a long time. I can't finish it until I'm like, oh, this is going to be the best page. And I always think when I start a page that it's going to be the worst one. And I have to, like, I dig into it, and then like then I find something where I'm like, oh, well, okay, so if we're sending the light here, okay, we could warm this up. Like, it's like this like problem solving, but it's not even spoken problem. Like, you're just sort of in the Zen state. And it's taken me a long time to find my like voice as a colorist, which, so in this, like, I didn't do a lot of highlights. There's only a couple of spots. It's really flat. I wanted that feeling of it, but I wanted the colors to do the work. What was it? So I heard something years ago. There was like Dave McKay was talking about the idea of like, you don't need to, you just need to understand the juxtaposition of colors. You don't need to think about what colors you're using. As long as you have the contrast that you want, it's not about, it has to be this style, that style. It was really about the juxtaposition, and like
these two panels at the top are similar to that.
Yeah,
they're important. There's an important part of that you're using the color to tell the story.
Yeah, your eye's going to go where it needs to go in this, and then also like environments, like,
right.
I wanted this like basement show to have this like,
you can almost smell the eggs, right?
Yeah. You got to smell the eggs there. Like it's, I like in this, when this sounds silly, but when I found the blue that I wanted to use for the back, like I just got super excited. It's just like, there's like, I sometimes I'll flip through books. I'll go to the comic shop and you look at a book and like, I'll pick it up before even like really digging into the art, before digging into the story of it. Like the colors jump out at me. I really appreciate, and there's like so many amazing colorists right now who are just doing fantastic work. Jordy, of course, but like Sophie Dodson is doing like brilliant colors.
She's great.
Rico Renzi always does brilliant stuff. But you'll see their work, and like the pages are so alive with those colors that like I'm like, I want to do that. I like, oh my goodness. And so so in this book, it probably takes me longer than I should, but getting into that Zen space and like trying to do two things at once, which is like, you want to tell the best possible story. You want to tell the story, help the story as you can. You also want to get out of the way of the artist. Like Alex did such an amazing job. I don't want to like over render something or like do anything that like takes away from his brilliant art. So like it's like it's a balancing act there.
Coloring is a vital part, as vital as any other part of a comic story. It is a storytelling device.
Mm-hmm.
When Bob has heard this a million times, but when I was working on The Question over at DC, my colorist was Tatiana Wood. I'm very proud to say that, I should point out. And Tatiana would have me go over every panel of each script with her, so she understood it, and she would ask me questions about the story, and I learned the coloring process. I'd been working in comics for years by this point, but she doubled my knowledge of coloring and the importance of and how you make decisions. It is as vital a role as any other aspect of the process. And yes, I noted that you were one of the very few writer colorists without anything in between those two words.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would love to be an artist as well. You know, I can draw a little, but to be a good comic artist is also there's a different storytelling muscle there than like drawing a one-off thing. Like when you see a comic page, there's so much thought that went into how the panels are laid out, all the action, the acting that they do. Like I can't do that. And at one point I thought I could, and then I think I realized that what I like working with good artists, and I it's like, I used to make short films with friends, but I don't make short films with friends now. I used to play in bands that were not so successful bands, but I don't play anymore. Like you sort of put away different things at different times in your life, and then you can like focus on the things that like are really bringing you joy. And for me, I love writing, and I also I love doing colors. Like it's like this Zen state. Like you can just like get into a groove with colors and really dig into a page, and that like hopefully you're helping the story, you're telling the story in the best possible way, and you get to also like just have a little fun with the colors, go a little wild, do something that shouldn't work.
When you're writing, do you think of the coloring?
No. I think I knew that I wanted to go flat. That was as much as I knew. Okay. And then it wasn't until I dug into a few pages that Alex sent because the colors needed to support Alex's art. Like I could have had like this plan where the colors are going to do this or that, and if it didn't work with the pages that Alex sent, then it didn't work. And so it had to be a supporting level to that, and so I needed to get those pages first. Right. But I knew that like we had talked about the idea of it being flat, so that was
it's an important decision. It's an important choice. And I'll give you another example of a book that had to be flat and with a great colorist is Shade the Changing Girl, and Kelly Fitzpatrick did the colors there, and she's wonderful, but she can do other things as well. But that book needed to be that way. Similar, it needs to be that way. It's got it fits the vibe of this book. And I want to talk just a little bit because we're getting towards the end here. The book, it is 3:15 on Thursday. People have to back this project, right? 3:15 on Thursday. What are the rewards and stretch goals? And we can put it out here. So let's touch that before it gets too late.
Sure. Yeah. So the rewards is obviously the comic itself. We have a couple of different covers. From
these are the three color covers, right? That we have.
Those are the three variant covers. And the main cover, you should be able to see above there. So Alex did the main cover, and we're going to have a motif of those small versions of the characters going through all of the covers. And then Allison Sampson, who is just brilliant. Jim Mahfood, also awesome. Ted Brandt and Rose Stein, just I love their work. I think it's fun to do variant covers. Hey, that's all it comes down to. It's fun to do. So excellent covers. We did a couple of stretch goals here as the Kickstarter went on. Alex made some like punk show flyers, but for the
Nice.
comic. And so we're going to do prints. So those are we already hit that. And so everyone's going to get a print of this punk show flyer. They'll get their choice of color of the three. Shelley, who, as I said before, is incredible. And she offered up a conversation on how to work with a comics editor. It was sort of with a focus on like going from zero to editor, like having not worked with an editor and to what that experience is like, what it means. And I certainly have lived that, and I look forward to that conversation. But Shelley is incredible, and I really appreciate her doing that. And then the last one is, so I really love all the covers, but Allison Sampson's cover is just really, it's really beautiful. I love the palette that she used. I love the way that she pulled focus with the choices. And I decided to make a sticker of it because I also like stickers. I'm going to put one on my computer. I would love for us to reach the stretch goal because I would love one of these stickers. I think other people will like them too because Allison's art is just amazing.
Yeah, she's lovely. I met her at New York last year. She was so much fun.
Yeah,
I wish to tell every person who's listening to this, watching this right now, whenever right now is, as long as it's before 3:00 on Thursday, support this project. If for no other reason than because I want to read those other 5 issues. So please support this for me. It's a favor for me, if nothing else.
Well, here's the deal also. We're making those other 5 issues no matter what. So support it, and we can make them in a much more reasonable way, a faster way. Raising funds to do this is a process, is a thing. But no matter what, we're telling this story. That's something that it's not a doubt in my mind.
That is a storyteller for you. That is what you want to hear a storyteller say. Good,
I mean, it's what we were talking about. Like, I love telling this story. I really like the process of making this story, sharing this story has been the most rewarding creative experience that I've ever had. That's not hyperbole. That's not exaggeration. Like, I feel like this, it really is something, it's special to me, and I hope it's special for readers. But I got to tell the rest of the story too. I can't, there's some hooks that the first issue ends with that, some things that get set up that he would be really annoying for a reader to leave. So we are going to answer all of those questions, and hopefully in a satisfying way.
That's
that
great.
is the exact right attitude, and I respect and admire you, Oliver. Good for you.
I know you say you don't do a lot of shows. Do you have plans to do any shows this year?
We are booked for New York,
Okay.
New York Comic Con. We did not get into SPX this year because they do the lottery. We have some friends who are like, they get in because they've done it for forever. We were in the lottery bucket and we didn't get in. So I think that New York is probably going to be it. As I mentioned, I have a young, you might have heard him on this as a fourth participant of this conversation, which I'm sure my wife is like, wrap it up and you can help. But that's another thing. Shows will be a little leaner this year, and then next year pick it up a little bit more.
Okay,
but New York Comic Con for sure.
Sure. Well, we'll hopefully see you there, and hopefully see you along the way. And we're looking forward to getting this book in our hands physically. I've read it digitally, so and I like physical. So we've kind of given ideas about why we want this book. What if you had one last thing to say about, why someone should want to read this book?
I think I tried to make the book that I wanted to read, and what I should say is that might be the book that you want to read too.
So I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you
Yeah.
for 1 second. So I've had this conversation a bunch recently. I don't know if you're watching, but I've been watching X-Men 97.
I have not because of the young one, but I'm dying to watch it because of all of the hype.
So I tell people I love it, but I don't know why other people would. Like it feels like it was made for me, right? It feels like it's got all of the things that I enjoyed from the earlier show when I was a kid, which if I went back, I probably wouldn't enjoy anymore. But it's all the things that I thought I liked about it, but it's taken it to, but it's got a lot, and it's got a lot of Easter eggs and nostalgia. So like I feel like they're like, oh, Bob will like this, and that's so I get that. So it's hard. Yeah, I get what you're saying. So you're making something. I like this, so I don't know if other people are going to like it, but other people will like it, I guess.
I think that and I found that a couple of people have responded this way, and I hope that other people do. But that the book also feels like it's made for them, and like I don't want to make a boring book. I don't want to make a book that doesn't try to connect with someone on that level, and I hope that this book does that. But like I really like I mean it when I say worth your time. Like no one has time for anything, and like I think this book is worth your time. I think that's the best thing you can say. That's probably the best you can say about anything, right? Sure. Like your time is really valuable, and to stop and to pick up something, like that's a choice you've made to not do with these other things. And I think this is worth that time. You won't regret reading it.
No, that's that highlight. You won't regret reading it.
You won't regret. That's a
tagline.
How I pitch it.
That's the call out right there.
You only might regret meeting everything.
Maybe you'll regret it. Find out.
You might not regret it right away.
Right.
So that, like if you might be like, I think I liked it. Yeah.
Well, Oliver, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely loved having you.
This has been wonderful. Thank you.
We will when we get to issue 2, you'll come back. We'll talk about it.
I would love to.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Mike, we are coming to the end of our sojourn of the Tuesdays. Next Tuesday, we have Amit Tischler and Elliot Spurl. They're going to talk about their new Mad Cave book. And I know you're excited for that. I'm excited for that. The following week, I'm not going to tell you who's going to be there. But we have a possibility. We might hold off a week, but we'll let you guys know what's going on. In the meantime, I have comics to read. I have a lot of comics to read. I've been reading a lot of comics. I need to read more. There's always more comics to read. How about you?
Yeah, that's the problem with the week after Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah, well, and I was in New York, so I didn't get to go to Free Comic Book Day. So, did you make it to Harrison? I didn't even talk about that.
I didn't make it to Harrison, unfortunately. But I have to tell you, my favorite comic book that I've seen from Free Comic Book Day so far is the Mad comic.
Yeah.
And it's all reprint. And it's reprints of wonderful superhero-themed Mad stuff. It's hilarious. A lot of the stories I had read before, but had forgotten. It's a beautiful, funny book. And it's nice to see Mad back in comics.
Well, I like that too. All right, everybody. we're gonna go. We're gonna call it a night. We are happy that you have been here. Please make sure you go to popculturesquad.com. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials. Make sure you back Oliver's Kickstarter along with Alex. You will not regret it. You will not regret reading it.
Thanks, folks. We always appreciate your being here very much.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you